Hello, and welcome to Through the Veil, where we get together to share stories and remember the wisdom that has always belonged to us. I'm Melissa Cameron, and this week Lauren is joining me, and she's telling the story of her sovereign birth. You know, many stories, including my own, start with a less than ideal birth that results in a desire for more. And it's just so lovely to hear. A story that starts with a beautiful sovereign birth, a beautiful birth in power. Enjoy Lauren's story. Hi, Lauren.
Hi,
Hi, welcome.
I'm so excited to be here. The first time I met you, I was pregnant and
Yeah.
learning about home birth and that being something I was definitely going to do. And then I was so excited to meet somebody else that was like, oh yeah, this is the way to do it.
It's amazing. Recommended. Yes.
Highly
Yes.
recommended.
That's right. I think it was like CD Saturday.
Yeah,
Is that where you met? Oh, that's such a good place too.
yeah,
I missed
totally.
them this year, but yeah,
Had a baby.
had a baby, kind of missed all the events. Everything fell off the calendar. It's coming back though. Here we are.
That's good.
Yes. Well, let's start your story. Tell us about your mothering journey. Where does it begin for you?
Yeah, so I had my little guy a year ago. He was born on April 19th, a little spring baby. And I I my whole journey of coming to my home birth was um and the way that I wanted it to look and be was kind of all over the place, and it just kind of made its way how it was supposed to be. But I would probably bring it back to knowing that I wanted to have a home birth in it was like during COVID times, and I actually had a miscarriage, and I was teaching, and there was a lot going on in the schools. It was really hard, really stressful, really sad for me to like witness kind of what was going on with my kids and my students. And I yeah, I started opening up my world of like educating myself on like, okay, like what is going on with like the medical system, for instance, and if I was going to have a baby, like I definitely wouldn't want to have a baby in the hospital. And so I started learning by podcasts, like all of the podcasts I could get my hands on was like hearing other women and their story and like their ability to birth outside the system. And it was really inspiring for me. And um, yeah, and so then after my miscarriage, which would have been, I think, like 20, honestly, the last few years have like blurred together in
Yeah.
time. It's so weird. But it took me probably about a year, a little more than a year to get pregnant again. And we were trying, and I definitely wanted to become a mama. And my husband and I, we've been together for almost 17 years, so it's definitely like something that, we've been working towards like as a couple. And I was so excited about this next chapter, but I was very protective of how I was going to bring this baby into the world. So like, and when we became pregnant, I remember being like, okay, home birth is like the ultimate goal here. And so but I felt like there was only a couple options of midwives like around here. There was a couple different clinics, and that was your choice. Like that was for me. I was like,
Mhm.
okay, so and they called me and they were like, okay, you're on the waiting list. I was like, yay! And that was what I was gonna do. And as I further like went into it, I was like, oh man, these guys are just gonna come into my home and medicalize my birth like at home. And it was really off-putting, and yeah, there was a lot of things that kind of led into that. Like um, yeah, I decided like I didn't want to do any of the things. I opted out of all the ultrasounds because I knew when I had conceived, which I find so strange that it's like automatically they just assume you want a dating scan, but it's like,
Mhm.
well, I know exactly when I conceived, so like, what is the benefit to that for me? And they're like, you can opt out, it's okay, and they were all pretty supportive of that, which was nice. Um, yeah, I don't know how many clinics like or midwife offices around here, what their teams look like, but mine had, I think, 4 or 5 midwives, and we were
Yeah.
supposed to be able to meet them at least once.
Mhm.
Um, but it was like you were just another patient. Like it was quite. impersonal and just like, okay, you have any questions? And I didn't really, because I felt like really firm in what I wanted, and
Hmm.
which was just kind of hands off. I did get some pushback when, I didn't want to do the typical glucose test, which was like my first kind of run in of like, well, why not? Like, um, and then have you heard of the fresh test?
No.
No, hey, okay, so um, it's like a different, it's more of a natural, I think it has like, I forget actually what the ingredients are. I looked into
Oh,
it.
is it
It
like a
was like,
different drink you take and then get your blood
yeah,
sugar?
yeah, it's like a
Yeah, yeah.
powdery and it's just more, yeah, it's not the,
Because
but
really, they're
then
just pumping you full of like that orange thick drink. Ugh.
like
It's
when
just
would
all
you drink that?
sugar. They're just pumping you with sugar to see like how does your body handle it. So really, I mean, you could just eat like blend up some dates. Like
Yeah,
that's really high in
have a
sugar,
few,
right?
yeah, exactly. Have
Yeah.
some banana and maybe like whatever, a couple orange juice if you wanted to. Like I don't know. I just was like, okay, but yeah, so when I was going to get that, I was still like, okay, well, I'll take, because my midwives were like, we'll take the fresh test then. And I was
Hmm.
like, okay, because I was asking about it. And it wasn't something I think that they were typically offering, which I think is also strange. Like, offer it to all of the women. Why not? But they, yeah, the what's it called? Life Labs was not interested in having that be an option. So they were like, no, no, if you don't take our drink, you're not doing the glucose test. So then the midwives gave me a different referral, and that wasn't part of the thing that they were doing. They were just checking, I guess, my insulin levels or something. I don't really know how it worked. But then I go to do the test, and um, the midwives had sent a different referral for a different patient, and that was like the one I had. So I was like, okay, this is like divine stepping in. I don't even have to do this. Like I didn't want to do this test anyways.
Hmm.
I'm not doing it. So it worked out fine for me, and I didn't end up taking the glucose test. And then that's when I reached out. I had a doula at this point, which was like awesome. I felt really good about that. And I reached out to her and I said, do you know any like traditional midwives or I think the word I used was, do you know any independent midwives? And
Hmm.
she's like, well, what do you mean independent? Do you mean like a traditional midwife or a midwife that isn't part of a team? And I said, a traditional midwife. And she was like, okay, okay. Um, like I really want to support women that are choosing this route to birth outside of the system. However, like I myself am not comfortable attending those births, like for many reasons. And I was like, okay. And I had a good cry about this because I was probably about, I don't know, at your glucose test, what, I don't even know, remember how many weeks I
Probably
was.
like halfway through. Like I think it's around 20 weeks or
Yeah,
24
okay.
weeks or something like that
Oh,
when you get it.
I think I was even like pushing it. Like I was
Hmm.
like,
Right.
yeah,
Because you had all
maybe
the
like right at
issues.
the
Yeah.
end. And then so this was probably around like, yeah, 20, 30 weeks. And she
Hmm.
was like, okay, like let me look around because it's kind of a like community on the outskirts.
Hmm.
And I was like, okay, yeah. And she got back to me and we went. And so we ended up parting ways, which was, she was lovely and was like, she had no problems. I think I'd already like paid her a little bit for, um, or maybe I don't remember. Like
Hmm.
it's so funny when you're pregnant, you're just in
Like not important.
another realm.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
you don't know. And so she directed me to a couple people and I met with them. And then this one doula, she like felt completely right. She was somebody that was very comfortable with a physiological birth, which was really important to me. I wanted somebody that trusted in that. I didn't want people to bring their concerns or policies or fears. And I wanted to, yeah, I just wanted someone to be there with me to, I guess, support and guide if I needed it, as well as I really wanted somebody that was comfortable with homeopathy and herbs if they needed it. And my dream was like a water birth. I had all these
Hmm.
plans, right? You have all these plans that you were like, this is what my ideal birth will look like. And then um, you have to surrender all that, and that just goes out the window
Yeah.
sometimes, which was my case completely. And yeah, so we met we met a couple of times and I knew this person was going to be my gal. She was I can't say enough good things about her. So Um, then what happened? My mama brain is like, um,
Yeah, so you hired so basically you had to switch teams entirely, right? So did you drop your midwives
oh,
or did you
yeah,
keep
okay.
them?
So that was another thing. I didn't want to drop them because I felt like being my first baby, I was like, okay, well, I'll need them postpartum and I need
Mm,
them for the paperwork and like, what if, like all
mhm.
of the things of like, well, even though I was opting out of everything, like, what was the other thing, the GB thing right at the end, is that what it's
GBS,
called?
yeah.
Yeah, GBS, yeah. Which one of the midwives at the office still was like, she's like, I understand, like, and I know they're not they're just people and doing their
Mhm,
job and they're sharing their experience, which I can never like, give them a hard time about. But she was like, I understand why people opt out of pretty much everything, but this one is like one of those things like that you just kind of like. And I was like, well, my reason and understanding is that like it can fluctuate so much and like
mhm.
throughout your cycles, like when you're not even pregnant. So when you are pregnant, like same thing, there's so much going on. Like and then it can be something that really affects the outcome of the birth process because
Mhm.
all of a sudden you want to introduce antibiotics, whereas from my understanding too in the UK they treat it completely different, like, and
Yes.
it's just like I was like, no, don't put this on me, like, please. So she insisted I be sent home with the swab and like do it myself and then send it to the labs, and I was like, okay, thanks, and I just didn't.
Chuck.
um yeah, exactly, and I
Mhm,
was just like, thank you, but no thank you. And so I did keep the team on, but I had the intention of not calling them, which from my
mm.
understanding now is like totally different in BC right now. I've heard like women um being asked to like promise that they're gonna call during the
Yeah,
birth.
that's what my midwives did, and then we parted ways at like 4 weeks pregnant.
Yeah. It's like,
But
how
it's
could you
kinda
ask
it's
this?
dependent. It's not coming I don't actually think it's coming from the college from what I hear from midwives that I've talked to about it. It's, like the comfort level of the particular midwives and the particular teams. So some of those midwives are like, "Nope, don't wanna support anyone, who's going to not call us at birth." And some of them are okay with it. So it just depends. And I think the college has come down saying you can't bill for births you don't attend, which that makes sense, right? Like if they're not there. And they also can't then do the paperwork for it. So they're not doing paperwork for free births anymore, which is okay too. I understand that because they would have to
Yeah.
sign a paper saying they saw it,
Yeah.
right? Like they saw it
Which
and they didn't. So to protect themselves legally and for honesty and billing purposes, I can see why um, they're not doing that. Yeah, but it's really dependent on the comfort of the midwife. And really, like the college is around to protect the public. That's their mandate. Um, so if we believe that midwifery care mitigates harm, like if you have a midwife, you're going to be safer. And the college believes that, obviously, and like perhaps that's true. Um, then any amount of care a woman would accept, like even if it's just like I'm going to show up and get my blood pressure checked and decline everything, that would mitigate harm too, right? So it seems to me like it just makes sense that midwives would continue to take women into care, believing
yeah,
that they're
even if it
mitigating
was like
harm for whatever that woman will take, but
even if it
not
was
all.
like I just want like postpartum care, or like I want it, like,
Yeah,
I would like to, because that was something that I was like still interested in, was like
that's
I
actually something you can do. So the midwives that didn't take me into care, or that we parted ways at 4 weeks, they did offer me the option of calling them once the baby's born and coming into postpartum care. So now it seems like there's some clinics that have just postpartum midwives. So you
huh,
can just have that if that's something that's important to you. But then, like, that also probably involves a lot of declining and possibly things you don't want as well, if that's the direction you're going in your pregnancy and birth. So yeah.
yeah, honestly, like I think the next time around I hope to have another baby for sure, but like
Hmm.
I would obviously navigate this differently. I think a lot of my thing was coming at this of I wanted to, like, it's so funny, my first baby, it was like I couldn't see past the birth, like no matter
Hmm.
what, it was like I just like the birth, and
And then
then
it's
after
fine.
you're like, whoa. Yeah, yeah, right.
Then
Yeah, you think
it's
they just
over. It's
have to.
easy.
Exactly, and that was like I guess my end game was like I have to get through this birth, and I wanted it to be something that I felt empowered and I didn't come away feeling like damaged or like a victim, because like a lot of the stories I've heard and been around has all been like so traumatic, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
or like who's was more hard or more traumatic or was came out more, injured almost. And I was like, I don't want that to be my story. And so I was very protective, and I didn't share with many people um, that was my plan.
Mm-hmm.
But, and again, like I said, I wouldn't probably do what I did to the poor midwife team intentionally. It was just something where as I went on in my
Mm-hmm.
pregnancy, I was like, these guys are just like, yeah, they're not. And the one midwife that actually was on call, I'll get to that, but she
Mm-hmm.
would have been the worst one for me for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, she came in very heightened at the end. But so anyways, going back to it, so I hired another a doula to be my main person to be there to
Mm-hmm.
support my birth, and then my husband and I decided to invite my two best friends to come as well. And they both don't have children, but I was like, no, it'll be great for them to just kind of witness and be there to
Mm-hmm.
support. Which it turned out to be a really, really beautiful experience because it was long. My labor was so long. Um, and yeah, so I guess I went into labor on the 16th, which started out with like, just I contractions, and they were, sore and like period cramps intensifying, and they started coming like quite close together and lasting about a minute. I remember I called my best friend who's in Vancouver. I was like, and my other best friend who was down from she lives up in the Gulf Islands, and she'd been with me for about a week at this point, and was like, I'm not leaving because the
Mm-hmm.
second I leave, you're gonna have
Yeah.
this baby. So we were just nesting together, and my husband was nesting in his own ways because I truly believe, like, yeah, that they do their own thing in
Yeah.
their own, yeah, like, and yeah. So I called her. I said, they're coming frequently. I just had a bath, and they're lasting about a minute, about 3 minutes. And she's like, "Oh, that's a lot." And I was like, "Yeah." And I'm just calling you because if I don't call you, I figured I probably wouldn't call you. Like, I'd probably
Mm-hmm.
not invite you to come. So why don't you come down if you'd like to? And she's like, "Yeah, I'll be there soon." And Brett wanted to call my doula, like, and I was like, "No, just give like, and just wait a minute. Like, just wait, wait, wait." So we were on text, and she was well aware this is my first baby. She's like, it's gonna be a bit. I was like, okay, okay. And I do think I don't remember. I think she came and then left. Oh no, I think she didn't come that. No, she came then at my water broke that night around 1 a.m., which was really cool too. It was in bed, and I could like hear the
Yeah.
pop, and I was like, oh wow. And I went to the bathroom, and then it was like whoosh. And and I think I'd had a little bit of like a bloody show
Mm-hmm.
kind of like throughout the afternoon and night. And then we texted her, and she's like, okay, okay. And there I was pretty uncomfortable, but again, like the lead up, it was like you're kind of getting into it, I guess. It's not
Mm-hmm.
like all of a sudden like, oh, but it's getting more intense. And yeah, and then she came and checked on me, and we were yeah, we were just like, she's like, I think you're kind of going to be a while away. And I didn't want any cervical checks or any of this. And I was like, okay, like, yep, everything's good. Just kind of trusting the process. And then I believe we set up my pool like the next morning, pretty early. And I remember being like, I think this is too early. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
remember thinking, like, I think this is too early to get in the pool, even though I really wanted it. Cause I was like, you know, I don't know, just the
Mm-hmm.
comfort of a warm pool. I'm a
It's
tub kind of
delightful.
gal. Yeah. And yeah, then I remember getting very relaxed in the tub and being like, whoa, this is like amazing. I could have a nap. And the sun was rising. It was probably like, 6 a.m. or so. And yeah, things slowed like completely slowed down. Like it was like, okay now. And I was still in a lot of discomfort though. And the TENS machine. Did you use anything like that? Like,
I
what
did
was your
in one labor I used the TENS machine and it was so good. Like sort of in earlier labor, like before very active labor, I thought it was awesome.
yeah, like
Mhm.
that was my go-to. And then I think that she left me with the TENS machine, and my doula went home. She's like, okay, it's like, you slow down. I think you're going to be a bit. And I'm like, okay, sure. And that TENS machine became like a ritual for sure, like of pushing and like that button and
I was just thinking that it might have been the ritual of like, start it,
yeah,
ride through it, stop it, like just
yeah.
part of my
She
thing.
at one point she's like, I think she's just pushing the buttons for
Yeah,
the,
I don't
and
think
I
it's
filmed
actually
like
on.
hours of like my thumb going on this button. Um, and yeah, for the next like day and a half, 2 days, like I was just in and out of like water, like going to the shower, in the tub, trying to do some walking, like eating. Everybody was so tired. Like I remember my husband, like by day one, looked so wrecked and tired. I was like, oh my goodness, there's pictures of it, and he looks like just so exhausted. And but we were just getting started, and yeah, there was never any, I just remember everything was like so calm, and I like
Mm,
so appreciated that. Like my girlfriends were like just taking care of each other, and Brett, and like feeding, like, feeding me. And I was like really into this. I had just at one of the another CD Saturday I'd went to
mm,
in March, I got this like really nice local honey that was like infused with lion's mane, and it was like the
mm,
only thing that I was like, yeah, give me a scoop of that. That's so
mhm,
nice. And so they were just nourishing me, and like, taking care of my dog and my husband, and it was really, really special. And I was so, I'll for eternally be grateful for having, them there. But after a couple of days of like labor,
So this is a
I
couple days
remember,
after your membranes rupturing?
yeah, yeah.
Oh
So
yeah.
okay, that was another thing I know that I would have been if I
Yeah.
had, like, my midwives would not have been supportive of that, like,
No,
absolutely.
there would have been a lot of pressure to
Um,
transfer in and
and
have an
even just to be like,
induction.
let me hear the baby, let me hear the
Yeah,
baby,
yeah, yeah.
like. And my doula was very like, she didn't ask to hear until like literally at the end game. She was like, can I check? And I was like, she's like, is it okay if I use a Doppler? I'm like, yep, go. Like it was like at the end time, it was
Mm,
like I knew it was I was in transition when it was
mhm,
happening. But we came to, so yeah, the membranes had been broken for like what, 48, almost 50 something hours before
mhm.
baby came. So um when, I'm just trying to remember. um okay, so then yes, I was, and they would come on, my contractions would come on and they would die off, and then
Mm,
my doula suggested, why don't we call in an acupuncturist? And I'm like, oh yes, that sounds great. So she called a couple of people, and one of them was able to come in that night, which would have been the morning before Callum was born. And she came in and she was like, hello. It was probably about 6, 7 at night, maybe. Yeah. And probably after her like regular work day, and was like, you know, oh yeah, I can tell. Like I remember she was reading, like she's like, you're very strong. Like you're gonna have this baby at home. You're very
mhm,
determined. Like as far as Chinese medicine goes, I can tell you're very determined to have this baby here. And I'm like, yeah, yeah. And then
mhm,
I looked at my doula and I was like, okay, she can do this. And the second she's done, she's gone. She's like,
mhm.
okay. Like, and I was just in my like
Yeah.
my zone, right? And I didn't want any. So she did it. I was laid there for about 20 minutes with the needles in, and then she did. She left, and I was in bed. I was like praying. Oh my goodness! I think I texted my brother and I was like, "Been in labor for 3 days. Pray for me. Don't respond." like
That's
and
perfect.
like just very instructional to everyone. Like, how some women, especially when I was listening on podcasts, they're like in a different space. I was like very much like in command zone, and like
Yeah.
in my, like, I don't know, just in
Yep.
charge, I guess.
I think that's really common. It's like because you can be out of it, and then if you must come back for something logistical, it's like I have the fewest words
Yeah,
necessary to get this point across, and I'm out. Yeah.
that was me at
Yeah.
moments. Like, and there was a time too where uh Brett was like, "Oh, Lauren, like we were all sitting there. She's like, he says, is it okay if I go have something to eat?" And I'm like, "Are you gonna have chips?" And he's like, I don't know. And then I can hear him in the other room taking a small crunch bite of chip, and I was like, "You're eating chips."
Get
So then he's like,
out.
he goes outside. He's like eating chips outside, but it's just so funny. Anyway, so then I had the acupuncture. It was great. Around 11 p.m. I called in the team. I was like, everybody, we're having a family meeting. So like my girls came in, like
Mm-hmm.
Dula was in, Brett was in, and I was like, I need to have this baby. Like it's time. Like I was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm so tired, and like this is just ridiculous. Like I was like, I'm done. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and so okay, she says let's start. And we had been doing some different positions. Like she had me doing throughout the like last like day and a half, like doing some upside down things, side
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and really she's like, and because I didn't want any cervical checks, and one of my reasons being was like I just feel like my membranes have been broken. Like I've
Mm-hmm.
heard that it can infection can increase. Oh, and I missed one of the best parts. I'm so sorry. I have to go back.
Oh, go.
I I had to pee really bad. This was probably like day two. Yeah, day two of the labor, and I couldn't pee,
Mm.
and I was like I can't pee. I like for the life of me, I can't go. And my doula looks and she goes, "Oh, whoa!" And my whole bladder, there was like a whole other bump underneath my belly, and
Oh.
she's like, "Oh, this is very uncomfortable for you." She's like, would you be open to a catheter? And I was like, oh, that's scary. I don't know. And she's like, it's actually not that big a deal. And I was like, okay, yeah, because I was so uncomfortable
Mm-hmm.
and I've never had a catheter. So sure enough, we put the catheter in, and my friends were like, do you want us to leave for this? And I'm like, no, it's about to get real. Like you guys can
Yeah.
stay for the party. And they're like, okay. And we just like had my bowl on my coffee table and like put in the catheter, and my doula pushed on my belly and just unloaded my bladder into a bowl in my living room. And I was like, this is so cool. Like I'm so grateful that this, because again, that would have been like possibly a transfer. I don't know. Like it was just so comfortable. I was like, okay, thank you. Like that was done.
Mm-hmm.
And before the acupuncturist came that night, I was blocked again and I
Mm.
had to pee again and I couldn't pee. And she was like, Lauren, like I have one more catheter. We can do it one more time, but like um I was like, well, what if this needs to happen again? She's like, well, then we're out of luck because this is the last one I've got. And so
Mm-hmm.
we unloaded me again, and that's why I think I was like ramping up. I was like, okay, this is tonight.
Yeah.
We're having a
He's
baby.
out.
Yeah, like we don't have another catheter if I have to pee. And it was and I just remember being so uncomfortable with
Mm-hmm.
the amount I had to pee and just couldn't. And she said that she's like, I think the head's like the
Mm-hmm.
pressure is in the way, and that, um, yeah, like you need all the room you can get. So let's get this pee out. So, we, we did that. And, at 11 p.m., we started like pushing. So we started on like the toilet, and we were really trying to activate to create my contractions to be more regular. And so yeah, I did a couple of positions where I was like pushing my legs like against the door frame of and I was my back against my hallway door, and
Mm-hmm.
like just really trying to like bring the baby like down and like kind of
Mm-hmm.
around. And but nope, like so we tried another thing on another bathroom. So this was like going on for like hours, and I was pushing like it was like the hardest soccer game I've ever played times a million. Like I didn't know I had this strength, and I was like just sweating and pushing, and I was like, why is this baby not coming out? And I could feel his head, so I could put
Mm-hmm.
my fingers in, and I could feel his head, but
Mm-hmm.
it was not on my perineum. I was like, he's not coming down. Like
Mm-hmm.
this baby is not close. Like what is going on? Like what is going on? And I like later found out that he was in a position. I don't remember what it's called here. I think
It's like
like
asynclitic.
yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Um, and so I mean, it kind of I guess makes sense that he wasn't like coming down as easy because he wasn't in that
Yeah, so it's like
optimal.
cockeyed. It's like, so did he have a little pressure mark on his head?
Oh
On the
yeah, like a
side?
big, yeah, it was like he had a cone head and then like a cone off the cone head to the side. It was like
Yeah.
wild. And then that was
Yeah.
gone within like 25 minutes, 30
Yeah.
minutes, which
It's
was like
amazing.
amazing.
Okay.
So amazing.
It's so cool. Izzy was asynclitic as well. And I had that experience being like, it just seemed to be taking so long, then labor would stop and it would start. And I learned later that like that's very common with asynclitic babies, and it's your body is so wise and your baby's so
So
wise and knows just how to like ease that baby down with putting too much pressure on the side of their head. And so it's a slower labor and it's a slower easing out. And they come out anyway. And it's,
Oh, that just
yeah,
makes me want to cry
I
because it's so
so
true. Like,
beautiful.
it's so beautiful. And like, yeah, wow.
Mm-hmm.
So he wasn't ready. My body wasn't ready. I was pushing on that toilet for hours. And um, we were, it was probably, I remember, and my doula was sitting there on the floor, probably like, oh, like stop screaming. Like, this is so long. But she had her headlamp on because it was dark. And I go, Brett, what time is it? And he goes, oh no, I say to her, I'm like, what time is it? She goes, does it matter? And I said, Brett, what time is it? And he goes, it's 4:30 low. And I was like, in the morning? He's like, He's like, yeah. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't. And we had the breast pumps going, like, doon, 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 and like
All
the
the
contractions. Yeah. And I was like, I can't. He's not coming. And I was like, I don't know if I can. And I think I was in transition. Like, even though he still wasn't there, like on the perineum, I think my body was being like, all right, you're going to have this baby in the next 40 minutes or so.
totally. That's when everybody says
And
it. I can't. I'm at the
yeah,
end. And it's usually because you are at the end. You've done it.
like, oh, and it was the end, like, and but
Mhm.
I was like, I can't, like, I'm done. And she goes, okay, well, here's your two options. She goes, do you want to you can have a nap. And I was like, what? And she was like, yeah, you can see how that feels, and like if things slow down and you can have a rest. And I was like, how am I supposed to have a nap, like, as a contraction's coming on. She's like, and I'm like, it's hard, like, I can't. And she's like, yeah, or we can look at going to the hospital and you can see if Pitocin's gonna. And she knew that was like gonna like hope me. And I was like, no, like that's not happening. And she goes, exactly. She suggests, she says, I don't think that babe is in like the optimal position, and I really want to try and get you to lay on, like, I want you laying on your back, and I want to see if I can help you and navigate things. And I was like, no, like, okay, fine, like, okay, fine. And she goes, but on the way, I want you to do two really deep squats during a like contraction or sensation. And I was like, okay, okay. So I get up off the toilet after being on there for like what seemed like eternity, but it was probably like 4 hours of
That's a long
pushing.
time.
It was so long. It was so hard, but like
Yeah.
I was so determined to do this, and it was and it wasn't even that painful. Like, honestly, like everything's just working for you at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, and you're just, but you have to give it your all. That's what I remember just
Mm-hmm.
thinking, was like, I'm yeah, like I don't want to, like, I just want my body to help. I was waiting for like all of these things that I'd been learning about, like the fetal ejection and like
Yeah.
reflex, and I was just kind of waiting, but also like working. And
Mm-hmm.
so I did the first squat, and right then, like, boom, he like dropped right down to the
Mm.
perineum, and I was like, yes. But getting to that next spot was like, I couldn't, like, it was so like, there
Yeah.
he's like, that watermelon's at your butt, right? You're
Yeah.
like, I
You
can't.
cannot move.
Yeah, you're really struggling to move. And I remember the next squat, and well, actually, my best friend, she's like, I discovered I found a bunch of videos 4 months later that I had took like during these moments, which
Wow.
I'm like so grateful that she did,
Yeah.
because we laughed and cried about it watching them later. Um, but like my husband's holding me, and I'm like, ah, like going through it, and you can see that he starts to just laugh and lose it, and he's like, all right, we got to change it up here. And I think he like really injured his back as he, 185 pounds, just like boom,
Yeah.
sumo squat for a minute long contraction. He's like, whoa. And
Men should work out for labor too, hey? Like
oh,
partners,
they
like,
need to, right?
yeah, you're gonna need to take up a gym membership as soon as she gets pregnant. That'd be for the best.
They need the endurance
Yeah.
as much as us, for sure. And but I crawl, and he goes, I remember him being like, crawled it, like, hurry up, like, get to your, like, they had the yoga mat set up for me, because it was like, in my mind it was going to be in the bath, down, like in the tub right
Yeah.
downstairs. And now it was happening in my bedroom. And they'd set up like a bunch of cushions, and ended up being like, laying on my back, which was actually the most painful part, was actually laying down.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being like, no, my gosh, and like, it's happening. And I was laying like kind of on my back, Brett like perched up against Brett, and then both my girlfriends like one leg, like so in it.
Mm.
And my doula like kind of in there sussing it all out because again, she was like, I think that the baby's I just wanna and anyways, I remember saying, oh, am I gonna have my baby here? And then she's like, yes, Lo, you are. And I was like, okay. And then I said, I need a warm compress for my perineum. That's what she said. I said, and then she's like, well, I don't think it's gonna matter at this point because he was like,
Yeah.
and I'm like, this is me advocating for my vagina. And then both of my girlfriends were like, yeah, yeah, fair enough. She needs a warm, yeah, let's get her warm compress.
I
So
think
everyone's like getting
that's your episode title. This is me advocating for my vagina.
yeah. And everyone's like, yeah, yeah, fair enough. She wants her conference. So then we're there. I remember that also being feeling like so long. Like what's taking so long? There and my doula was like, I'm getting the warm water ready. Just like 1 second. I was like, I can't. Like okay. So it's all happening, and it's like the best, but also just like so new. And like this is where yeah, like wow, birth is just it's so biological, but it's also like so spiritual, like if you let it. And I remember leading up to this too, for like 2 days, I kept seeing blue like
Mm,
streaks of lights.
cool.
And during this moment, like it was all like just happening, and everything was really quiet, and then I could feel him like turn like inside me, like
Hmm.
just on his head, like was like outside, but like I
Hmm.
could feel it. And we all like could hear this little like and that was like my baby. And
Hmm.
until then I didn't, you just like don't realize you like have a baby.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's when everything was happening. I wasn't pushing. It was just he was just coming out
Hmm.
really. And yeah, I think in the end it was like maybe one push during the next sensation, and then he was like, whoosh, like there he was, and then he was crying, and he was just like such a squish, and like he was so small and came onto my like chest, and I was like, whoa, I definitely was like in shock, and couldn't believe it. I was like, oh, like what is happening? And we didn't know if we had a boy or a girl, and I was like thought, oh, it's so small. Like, oh, it's got to be a girl, so small. Um, and then yeah, just looking like, and this is all like again, my friend had recorded this without even remembering herself, and we were all in this like birth time warp. Like we didn't know what was going on, but we did at the same time. And he came into the world, my dog right there, and like we were all just like, yeah, just witnessing the
Mm.
miracle of life. And yeah, everything was good. I'm just like actually reliving it in my mind right now. Everything was good. He was healthy. He was crying. He had this like huge cone head, like I said, with the big
Hmm.
thing on the side. And my doula was like, "You see this like low right here?" And she said the term of it, and she's like, "I think this is why like you had such a long labor and why your little babe was taking his time coming through." And she says, "This is gonna go right down. Like you don't have to worry." And I was like, "Oh my gosh." And I remember she said, she looked and she's like, Lo, I don't think you teared at all, really. And I was like, oh, thank you. Like, I was
So
so,
good.
that was one of my biggest fears,
Hmm.
like not knowing what to expect. And just hearing a lot of women's horror stories, which I think often come from interventions and stuff like that. So we just, yeah, like laid there for a few minutes. And I remember, oh yeah, the contractions coming on, and the I was like scared to give birth to the placenta. And I remember the yeah, the placenta I was nervous about. And I after about 5 minutes or so, yeah, the contractions were coming on, and I was like, what does it feel like? And she was like, kind of like jelly, like you're gonna be giving birth to jelly. And I'm
Hmm.
like, okay, I can do that, like that sounds great. So I was like, I want to stand up, and I did, and boop, it came out. um
About how long
and
was that, do you think, until
yeah,
the
I would
placenta
say
came?
like maybe 5 minutes.
Mm. Oh, right away. Hmm.
Maybe 10, maybe
Yeah.
10, probably about 10 because I laid there with him for about 5.
Hmm.
And And then I was like, okay, I need to go have a bath. Like I was like, I need to, like, it was very strange. I was like, okay, I did this. I'm gonna go have a bath. And my husband just like laid with Cal and still attached to the placenta, which was like the best, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he had his time, and I laid in the tub for what I thought was like maybe 10 minutes, but then my girlfriends were like, Lo, like it's time for you to go back to your baby now. Been about 40 minutes. I was like, whoa, okay, sure, okay, I guess. Okay, sounds good. And we did a cord burning. We like kind of got all tucked into bed together. And yeah, it was 5:15 he was born, so this would have been around like 6:30 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so we just all like laid there and did that, and yeah, like just came back to our like place because we were all just, yeah, somewhere else. Like you really are. You like if not disturbed, like you just get to go somewhere, and it was I just remember it just being so special. And then we cleaned up. Everything was kind of cleaned up, and then I had a little nap, and then I called the midwives to like come and I guess check on me and yeah, like help me with the paperwork. I didn't really know. Like this
Mm-hmm.
was something that I didn't really know. And the woman that came, or the midwife that came, she was like, "What? Okay, I'll be right there." Like, oh, I was like, "Okay, everything's good." Like, um, everybody's good. He was born at 5:15, and this was probably around like 9, I want to
Mm-hmm.
say. Um, and it's so funny. She like came in and was like just totally change of energy as it would be.
Yeah.
And this is where I think like I was very vulnerable, like because I'd just been like cuddling with him just like skin on skin since he was born, either with me or Brett. And when she came in, I remember and we'd opened the windows. Like I remember before she came, I was like, it smells like birth. Let's just like open the windows, get some fresh. We were snuggled in bed, and I was like, look, like I have a baby, and she was like, okay, like let me see. And she like took him. I remember she like took him away from me, and I was like, okay, like, and she like undressed, like, or he really wasn't dressed. He had his little cloth diaper on and was just like on my skin and the blankies. And she was asking all the questions, and like he was crying immediately, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I remember he started like shivering. It was cold, and I was trying my best to answer the questions, and then I was like, oh, like can you please like put a blanket on him, I think he's cold. And then I remember her being like, oh, like yes, I think he's cold. And then she was like, just 1 second, and she was like measuring and weighing and doing these things. And then she was listening to his heart, and his crying was like so sad.
Oh.
I remember I was like, can you just please like he's really cold in his little mouth, and was like
Oh.
shaking. And then um I I think I started crying because she was like, we need to heat him up. That's what she said. So then we got a heating pad. She's like, he needs a heating
When
pad.
his mother's right there.
Like, what?
Yeah,
Okay, but of
you're
course
his
we were
heating
so
pad.
vulnerable. Like, but
Yeah.
I was like, okay. So everyone's
Yeah.
like, my husband's putting the heating pad, and then she put a blanket and his hat on, and then she's talking to me, and she's like, he's there, and she comes back, and she's like, okay, is he warmed up? No, not yet. A few more minutes. And so I'm like, okay. And I'm answering the questions. And then all of a sudden I was like, I'm sorry, like he's sweating. Like, I don't like this. Like and then she's like, oh, and then she like takes him all off of the thing. And she was just like very much
Mm.
not present. I think that was like the
Yeah.
number one thing, which it might have been like because she wasn't there. But like at this point I was like, okay. And then she started going off about his breathing being erratic. She's like, his breathing is very erratic. And she was like doing all these time, like it was just so intense. And I just like I remember feeling like, oh my gosh, I think she's gonna send us to the hospital. Like I think this is gonna change right now, like in front of me. And but we just kind of kept calm, and I told her like, I remember I said that my waters, one of the questions she asked, how long was your waters broke? I was like, about 24 hours. I just kind of made it out like it came really quick. The baby just like, I was, whatever. I just was like
Mm-hmm.
trying to smooth it out. And she's like, um, and then she was asking me about my breasts, and she was like squeezing. She's like, have you nursed yet? And I was like, oh, not really. Like he's like kind of suckled, but like, and then she's like, your nipples are inverted. You might have like issues with
Oh.
breastfeeding. And I was like, oh no. I remember that kind of coming later that night, kind of coming up for me because he
Mm.
didn't wasn't latching. And I was like, maybe she's right. Like I don't have the right breast for my son. Like, oh my
Oh.
gosh. Um, and she was just like had the breast pump out and was like squeezing so hard on my boob, trying to like pull out my like probably colostrum or
Hmm.
whatever. And then I remember her also saying, "Can I?" She said, "Can I check you?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely. I'd really appreciate it if you would." And then she's like, "Oh, you've got a tear down here, maybe first degree, maybe second degree. Would you like me to stitch you up?" And I was like, "Actually, like, no, thank you. Like I just like it to heal." And she goes, "Well, your vagina is never going to be the same again."
Oh my
And then
gosh.
I know. And then my husband was like, "I like her vagina."
Oh.
And I was just like, "Yeah, it's okay. Like I've had injuries like with sports before, and like I just really believe that like our bodies can heal." And yeah, so just the change was like so much so fast. And she was there for about 4 hours, just really I think trying to do her due diligence. And like
Mm.
I'm really grateful that she I guess came and did the paperwork for me, because I was just I just didn't know, like
Yeah.
it was all happening throughout my journey. And I thought I knew, but at the end of the day I was just really protective over my birth. And then to see how strong I was in that, but then to be how vulnerable you can be
Hmm.
in those moments, really showed itself for me. Because later that night, I remember Callum waking up and he wasn't like eating and he was crying, and I was like, I think I have to feed him formula. Like my mind
Mm.
went there. I was like, I don't think I have the right breast for this. And then my friend was like, okay, like I can go look for it for you, because I had some set aside from a friend that given me some just in case. And she's like, I'm gonna go make us some tea and I'll come back up. And I remember he latched and like nursed for the first time. And I like, yeah, like I saw like lights and I just like was crying,
Mm.
and I was like, oh, like this is like it's all okay. And just having trust and faith in everything, like because yeah, everybody's journey is so different.
Hmm.
But like it seems that we're so quick to, and I don't mean we as, but I mean kind of like we have been taught to be so quick to give over our power to somebody of like quote unquote authority or that knows better. And how damaging that can be for yeah, just your experience and the health and wealth of
Hmm.
you and your baby. It's
Yeah,
really
you
just
can see
wild.
how it would be so hard to advocate in labor, right? With that kind of
Oh,
energy coming at you, even if it wasn't, even if she was calm, but she's the authority, which is how we feel, right? About that's how we feel about doctors and midwives. And like, that's just how our culture is. And so in labor, to decline to be like, I'm not transferring in, I'm not taking the thing, I don't need your hands in my vagina when that's being pushed on you, it's really hard, like almost impossible. Like, it's not the time to have to advocate.
yeah, well, exactly. Like I don't really feel yeah, yeah, everything that the way that it was, I was very protected. I do
Hmm.
believe that because, um, yeah, just at the in the end of time, like if she had been the one that was there, I would not have, I don't believe, had a home birth, which was like
Hmm.
my epitomal, like most important thing, especially coming out of COVID and just realizing like I just don't want to be in hospital. That seems
Hmm.
like the last place I would want to do this. And like I said, not really having much of a community of people that I was like, hey, what was your experience with this? Like as somebody that
Hmm.
decided to birth outside of the system, and that being really taboo to even, um, yeah, birth in that way. So,
Hmm.
oh, I'm just so and right after I was like, I want to do that again, but
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. When it happens in power, it's like, oh, oh, that was good.
that was really good.
Yeah. Yeah. How was your postpartum experience after that?
Um, Honestly, like great. Like I nothing to compare it to, but
Mm.
I felt I really tried to be restful. I was really like pleased that I didn't have to like, yeah, even just the like hearing about the vitamin K shot was like something wanted to stay away from. But um hearing about like possibilities of like jaundice or this and that, and how that can come with all of the things. It was springtime. I remember I probably spent a week or so upstairs in bed, more or
Mm.
less. But then a lot of just time laying on the deck with him, and like just having sun on our skin. A little bit like 15 minutes in the morning, like 20 minutes in the afternoon, like just snuggling my baby and slowly letting people come and visit. But I was also pretty protective over that. I wanted to
Mhm.
like kind of come into myself again. And my husband, like, yeah, he had to go back to work. Um, he was quite busy, yeah. So after about I don't even know, again, time, who knows, who knows. But it was great. Like it's such a special time to just be able to, yeah, be with your kid and just cuddle.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty special, especially if you like if you're ready for that kind of cuddling in bedtime, right? Like if that's
Yeah.
what you're, yeah, look forward to that and embrace it. It goes so fast, right?
So fast,
Yeah.
and like all of the little stretches and the like facial expressions, and
Yeah.
everything's new, and you're just kind of rolling with it. Like I and having that opportunity, I think, to have that mother intuition, like I can only imagine what it would feel like. And I've heard it many times, that expression of like, oh, they handed me my baby back in the hospital and then just sent me home with my baby and I didn't know what to do. And it's
Mhm.
like, um yeah, like I didn't have to leave to go somewhere. I was already here. We were here together. This was our space, and we just built on it every day, and like it was just comfortable. Like it was just, and I
Yeah.
remember the first little bath with him and him being so small. And yeah,
What did he weigh?
he born at 8
Yeah.
pounds 3 ounces, but then after his little meconium poo, I think he went down to like
Yeah.
7 pounds like 8 ounces or
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
something. Yeah.
nice. Yeah, he was a good size one then.
Yeah, he was a little
Yeah.
chunker. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was good. But he wasn't like nothing too big for my body. Like,
Of
and that
course
was
not.
something that like,
Yeah.
yeah,
We
that I was like, nope,
grow
he
the
was
babies we can birth.
right.
Yeah.
It's yeah,
Hmm.
it was wonderful. It was really wonderful. I like highly, yeah, like you said at the beginning, just highly recommend if you can. And having, and again, having a partner that just can like just see you and be there for you is
Hmm.
really a big deal. Because Brett never put, I'm sure he had moments of like, oh, are you sure that's the best choice or concern, but he never put any of that doubt on me. Like it
Mm.
was always like, very supportive. Like, okay, Lo, if that's what you think is best, which is so important because
Yes. Yeah.
I got to be the one to do it.
Yeah, you're the one that does it, and I believe like it's the intuition of the pregnant mother that makes birth safe, right? That you're the one that
Mhm,
knows if it's okay. And when you can
mhm.
be free to tap into that without other people putting their fears or expectations on you, that's what makes birth beautiful, powerful, and safe.
Mm, so well said. Beautiful, powerful, and safe. And I
Hmm.
get to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Yeah, thank you so much for listening and yeah, letting me share. It's always like you said, something new comes up, and I love going to that place.
Yeah, bring it all
Yeah,
back.
yeah.
Thanks for listening. New episodes are released every Tuesday. You can submit your story through the link in the show notes or connect with us on Instagram, link in the show notes as well. Follow, subscribe, share, write us a fabulous review. These are all great ways to be part of the movement toward more powerful and peaceful births. Until next time. Thanks for listening. New episodes are released every Tuesday. You can submit your story through the link in the show notes or connect with us on Instagram, link in the show notes as well. Follow, subscribe, share, write us a fabulous review. These are all great ways to be part of the movement toward more powerful and peaceful births. Until next time.